Hello and welcome to Educated STEM. I'm Kate, the founder of Educated STEM, and this is going to be our second video in the series about starting your own business. So again, I'm going to be joined by Dr. Shayla Vradenberg of Revolting Science Resources and Lauren Solano of Propel Careers. And today we're going to be answering the questions: who are your competitors? What is the price of your product? And how will you promote the business? And then you need to consider who are your competitors going to be? Because let's face it, some people might be like, Kate, you're literally talking to your competitors right now. But I don't consider Shayla and Lauren competitors because we all do similar things with some overlap, but there's enough that makes us different that I think that we can be incredibly successful without impinging on anyone. And that's, even if you do what we do and you're currently not on this video, that doesn't mean I do or don't consider you a competitor. There's so many things that we can do that I think that we can all support each other. And I'm messing this up.
I 100% agree with you. So I feel like, okay. I was working with a small biotech that was doing like epigenetic reprogramming, trying to focus on health span a couple of years ago out in San Francisco. And at the time, that was still a relatively new field of scientific research. But they're like, listen, we want more people in the space. We want more competitors in the space because that's good for all of us. It's good for all of us to have more people in the space. The reason why I mention that is for people like us, it's good to have other people in the space because it allows people to find their niches. I think there's definitely enough opportunity to provide insights and advice to so many people around the topics that we cover. So it is helpful. I think the thing is that we're all pretty collaborative with each other. I think it's nice to build those bridges and build those relationships so you can see people as more collaborators than just straight competitors, because then you make it better for all of us. And by all of us, I mean the people we serve also in terms of the work.
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me of this concept of the scarcity mindset, and just that, if someone else gets a piece of the pie, then I don't have that piece. But again, I do think there is a lot of opportunity, like Lauren was saying. I think there's a lot of space. And I think what's really valuable about having more people in the space is that we all don't share the same experiences. We all have different perspectives that we're bringing to the topics that we talk about and the way that we think about a particular subject. And I think that actually is super valuable, because that may not resonate with certain people that I speak with, but it may resonate really well with another group. And I think that can give a lot variety and just depth to the different topics, even if there's overlap.
Yeah. And I always try to be a resource when possible. So if people reach out to me for topics that I don't cover as often, I'm happy to suggest someone for them, because then I can be a resource and then I'm a helpful person, as opposed to just like, nope, I don't do that. Good luck. So I think it's good for all of us to know who's out there and such. But I mean, I guess from a practical perspective, it is helpful to get a sense of like, what is the landscape, right? And like, who are the competitors and what are the companies, and who, it's good to have an idea of what that looks like. But I think there's opportunities to carve out your own niche, as long as there's a need. I guess a need that people are willing to pay for. That's we can talk about that in a little bit too. It's like you need to make sure that you have money coming in to be sustainable. Otherwise, it's not going to be helpful, unless you might be like wealthy yourself. But in most cases, even if that's the case, you still want to be able to have like a profitable business to be able to maintain longevity in terms of the work that all of us do.
In talking about earning money, let's talk about what price you put on your product. Because depending on what you do, if you're making, I don't know, if you have a coffee shop, then maybe you're thinking, I'm going to sell coffees for $5, which is probably kind of a Starbucks or similar kind of price. But for something like us, I was lucky because I was bringing in speakers. I knew how much they charged, so I already had kind of a leg up to figure out where I should put my pricing. But maybe you're going into a completely new field and you're like, oh, I don't know. You're going to have to do some research. But let's face it, if you're watching this, you've probably done research before. It's in your wheelhouse. You just need to hit the internet or go and visit the people who will be your competitors and kind of figure out their pricing and then do something similar.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely want to be thoughtful. I mean, you know, uh oftentimes organizations will have a rationale. Usually it's not like, let's have a dartboard, let's throw a dart and see, oh, today I'm going to charge $5,000 for something. That usually is not what happens. Usually there is a rationale in terms of the pricing and the structure and the logistics and even negotiation in terms of like what, if an organization wants to negotiate on the price, are there certain parameters with which you might negotiate? Maybe it's like payment in 3 steps over 6 months versus having to pay all at once. I don't know. There could be ways to negotiate without changing your price, but making it easier for the end user to be able to incorporate the structure. But it is helpful to get a landscape of what things look like. One, so you're not undercutting the market per se, because but two, you want to make sure that people see the value in what you're offering. So, which is also another reason why it's not good to be like the cheapest person all the time, because then people might not value what you bring. So
Mhm.
it's a very interesting discussion. People spend probably years studying pricing in terms of even PhD programs to think about these things. So that way it helps organizations have a good foundation.
Yeah, what I'll say as a person who has not had my business for very long, I'm newer to kind of thinking about pricing and also trying to, you know, gain a network and gain more people that I can actually speak in front of or share my resources with. I'm actually kind of curious. I'd love to hear your guys' feedback too, as well, on thoughts on essentially starting out low and raising as you've gained more of a network and more experience. I think that was some advice I had heard, and so that's kind of the approach that I personally took when it came to pricing, was starting out low to get more people in, get feedback, and then as I gain more information, raising the prices. But I'm kind of curious if you guys feel like that's a good strategy.
I mean, that definitely is. I mean, I probably did that too when I started off Propel. Just, because you do want to build a customer base. You do want to build a situation where you can have feedback and so on and so forth. So I think that is definitely a proven way to be able to come in and start to grow the network. I guess the key there would be making sure that you're diligent with having those discussions about, okay, like you were one of the first 10 customers, so you got the introductory pricing. Now we're going to move to our next phase of pricing. And I feel like sometimes that's a hard thing for people to have that conversation on, because they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to like mess up the current status. So it's just being clear as to why are you doing something, and then knowing how that could build over time. So that way it adds value both to you and to the people that you're working with.
I will say I won't name any names, but there is a well-known speaker in our area. Lauren will be very familiar with this individual. I don't know, Shayla, you may or may not be, but he charges a lot of money to come in and give a talk, and he is an exceptional speaker. He has a book. It's not Jim, but he does have a book. And when I asked him about his pricing, because he is a lot more than other speakers, he basically said that he didn't want his time wasted. And if you're paying that much money for him, he assumes that you will get him a good audience. And that did not work when he came and spoke to my people. I advertised it a lot, and then we had it in a huge auditorium, and I want to say we had like 12 or 15 people show up. It was embarrassing. And he just looked at me and was like, well, it's the same price. And I said, well, I know that. I don't think I'm about to get a discount because my people didn't show up. And I just said, I'm really sorry. I did advertise this a huge amount. And then afterwards, people were like, oh, was that today? Yes, you missed it. But that's why his pricing was so high, was because he assumed that the individual running the program would put more effort into advertising. And being that person who ran the program, I can tell you it doesn't matter how many times I advertise. Sometimes people say, I've seen that advertisement too much, so I'm definitely not coming now. I'm not interested, or whatever it is. And then sometimes your experiment goes wrong, so you just can't show up. You can't necessarily always be there. But that was his rationale to charge 5 times as much as the general speaker.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah, interesting. I mean, it's useful to hear people's rationale and to hear how the thought process is. It could be helpful. I mean, I've also heard, I guess, from the organization perspective, uh, it takes the same amount of work to get a PO for like $500 as it does for $10,000, and so sometimes having a higher price just makes it easier to have things get done. I don't know. So it's very interesting to understand the logistics and like the back end work with some of these.
Yeah, and I've been told by others that if you're getting an honorarium, it's easier to get that through than to go through the route to get a PO. So if you can keep your amount to the honorarium amount, then I don't know. For where I used to work, that wasn't an issue.
Yeah, I've had that happen a few times in speaking situations where it's just, yeah, it's helpful. As a speaker, it's helpful to know the inner workings of the institution or the organization. So that way it helps in terms of figuring out like what makes sense from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is the thing that I have problems with. How are you going to promote your business? Because for me, it feels incredibly cringy. Having been the chair of the board of directors of the National Postdoctoral Association, there's lots of people who know who I am. Lots of people are then surprised that I have educated STEM, and it's like, you've seen me speak. I think you know that I have a business, and then it's just awkward. Like, you can bring me in, I can come and talk to your people, and then you email them, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll look into it." And it's like, how many emails do you then follow up with before you're like, "Okay, I'm just going to back away"? This is the hardest part for me, and I need to get better at it.
So when I first started Propel, it was really important for us to develop thought leadership in the space, like an awareness of expertise, so people would be like, "Oh, you do X thing," and so forth. So when I started Propel, I started to do blog writing in the hopes that then I'm putting content out there that people may find useful, and then that may help spread the word, and that might help increase the market and so forth in terms of potential customers and just people we can impact. So the blog writing, speaking, I love talking, so that I found super easy to just like, you want me to talk about resumes? Sure. And then I can highlight it on LinkedIn and Facebook, and I'm not really on Insta and X that much anymore. But I do feel like if you have content that's useful, finding ways to share information can be really helpful. We have a newsletter. We use Constant Contact to be able to do that. There's other systems like that too. The podcast. We just had our 6,000th play last week, the week of like middle of September 2025. So it's been nice to find different forums to then spread the word, so that way people hear about you, and that ideally should lead into more business. It's not always like a pure ROI, but what have you done, Shayla?
Yeah, so I think especially just kind of more starting out, and also I didn't raise any funds to start my business. I was doing it very self-funded to begin with, so I had a limited budget, but a lot of it was kind of actually similar to you. I like started writing blog posts. That's part of the reason I created the YouTube channel. I shared just specific kind of project management snippets that I thought would be really relevant. I also, though, as cringy as it is, I did send some just cold emails. And my whole like thought process is like, I hate it. And I don't like the fact of like just sending emails out cold. But at the end of the day, if I don't ask, like I'll never get anything. So I won't bug people. I'm not like spamming people, but I at least will ask and just see. And actually I did end up getting a few different seminar talks through just random cold emails. I think the thing that, yeah, has been most beneficial though was actually when I spoke at NPA. I think like at the end of the day, people really like to see what it is that they'd be paying for. And I think that sometimes can be tricky because it's not like I want to just make everything I'm going to be doing freely available, because then you don't need to pay me to show up. But I think just getting some level of a sneak peek of me as a speaker, some of the content I share, how that could relate to the trainees you work with, I think that made a really big difference in people being able to see how it's valuable for their trainees.
Yeah, I like that. We were talking about this before we officially went live to record. yeah, it's like being more strategic and putting in proposals to talk at certain conferences where the people in the audience of that conference could be people that could bring you in to be able to use your service and tools. Yeah, exactly. It's like for us being a little more intentional about these things and putting yourself in front of the right audiences to then make those connections is really important and really valuable. And I love your point, Shayla, that if you don't ask, you won't know. Like you, at some level, if you want to do entrepreneurship, you have to be comfortable hearing no. Because no, it's like, fine, great, I can now focus on something else. Thank you. You've done me a favor by saying no. Then I can just stop thinking about you. And and I think it's a different way of thinking about it. It's not just rejection, but it's giving you time then to focus on other things that are most important.
Okay, so I have a question which is not on my list. But as we've all spoken at these conferences, I'm just wondering how frequently people ask you for your presentation, because whenever I speak, I always send everyone, and I know Lauren's received it from me before, I have like the Cliff Notes version of everything I talk about to do with negotiation. So you don't really need to take any notes when I speak, because I'm going to email you my document. And when I send that along, a lot of people who may or may not run graduate and postdoc offices then send me one going, Kate, great presentation. Can I have your slides? And I always have to say no, because if you have my slides, you have absolutely no reason to bring me in. But also, I've also just sent you, I don't know how many pages it is, like 12 to 15. It's really short, but it has all of the key points that you need to know when it comes to negotiations. It's like, I've already given you my IP. I'm not going to give you the IP that I want to get paid for. So is that a problem that both of you also have?
Probably. Yeah, I'll let you go first, Shayla.
Yeah, I think for me, I haven't given as many talks as both of you have, I'm sure. I haven't gotten as many requests for my actual slides, but I try to also be very upfront with people when I can, that like I do not want my talks recorded. And I do also create some sort of like a resource sheet is what I call it, but something similar to what you described, Kate, of just like, this is what I talked about. Here are resources you can explore that are connected to that topic. And so you've got essentially a lot of the highlights from my talk, but it's not my talk itself. It's not the slides, and it's not a recording of me giving the talk. So I think that there have been less requests when I've been very much more like upfront of like, this is not something I'm trying to share more publicly, but I have not given as many talks as both of you have. So Lauren, I'd be curious to hear your experience.
Yeah, so I always give my full slide deck after each talk. So now I'm going to maybe reconsider that after hearing both of you. That's a really good idea with like the resource sheet and stuff like that. It's a hard, I constantly face this challenge of, I just want to help people and get them information, but I also would love to be compensated for the actual information as well. But yeah, so I probably give away too much information, and my slide decks are super detailed. So those of you that have been in the audience to see them, so it's like a massive amount of information in a short amount of time. Yeah, I could probably do a little bit better with respect to like how information's shared, because you're right. If like I tend, if things are recorded, I want them behind a firewall, because I don't want someone to just be able to go to YouTube and like search. And I know if you search my name, there's definitely things that have been recorded and posted there that shouldn't be. But yeah, because I want to be able to speak. I want to be able to come into the universities or conferences and give talks. I don't want to just listen to the recording that was somehow posted up there. So that it's like a balance of trying to navigate these things.
Yeah, I will say I've definitely had a few people try to guilt me in a, we can't afford you, but if you gave me your slides, I could help my population. And it's like, I mean, yes, I want to help your population, but I also need to make money. I don't know what else to say about that one. So thank you for joining us today. I hope you found it helpful. The next video, we are going to cover, do you need to write a business plan? Do you have the funds to begin the business? If not, how are you going to get started? How are you going to support yourself while beginning the business? And will it hopefully become a full-time job? So I hope that you'll join us for the next video in this series. Please like and subscribe. Find Shayla over at Revolting Science Resources and Lauren at Propel Careers. Thank you. Bye-bye.